There was a time when Power Rangers ruled the world. It was easily the #1 kids show in the world in the mid-90s. So naturally, video games were released to capitalize on the popularity. So today, I'm looking at 3 different games made for Power Rangers. The first game we're going to look at is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Fighting Edition. This is for the Super Nintendo. This is pretty much Street Fighter Light. The main concept of the game is just to fight various different opponents in a Street Fighter-like environment. The fighter who wins the match is the one who wins 2 out of 3 rounds. You have the selection between 2 different Zords, the Thunder Megazord or the Mega Tiger Zord. The big difference between this and Street Fighter is that this game is not so button mash heavy, mainly because they are really slow to respond. The biggest problem I have with the game's setup is that your opponent is not just enemies seen on the show, but you're also facing good guys as well sometimes. Like sometimes you'll face the Thunder Megazord or the Mega Tiger Zord, which is really weird. One of the main issues that I had with the game was the blocking system. Usually with fighting games like this, you just hit back on the D-pad and you instantly block. However, this game doesn't do that. You have to mash the D-pad around and the main buttons on the controller and hope for the best. Also, the hit detection is awful, which for any fighting game is a huge problem. There are constant moments where it looks like you're hitting them dead on, but it makes no contact. I literally only made it up to Goldar in this game because he causes the most frustration. Anyone familiar with fighting games knows about this frustration. The opponent that blocks nearly everything that you throw at him. Those opponents that you come so close to beating but can never manage to do it. I went through Goldar several times, and on the very last try, I came so close. He had only a small fraction of life left, and yet I still lost. Despite the issues, the game does have its perks. It does become rather fun once you get used to the controls, the timing, and the hit detection of the moves. And the best perk is the music. The music simply kicks ass. The 16-bit rendition of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers theme is awesome, and the rest of the music is really catchy too. Even in the matches that I was losing, I was still having fun because I was rocking out to the music. In fact, that's probably why I lost, because I was too far into the music. So overall, it's frustrating, slow, and a bit too one-dimensional, but I would be lying if I said it wasn't a little bit fun. The next game we'll look at is for the Genesis, and it's simply titled Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This is pretty much the same thing, except you get to play as the actual Power Rangers themselves. The story in the game follows along with the show really well, where Rita makes a monster and a Power Ranger of your choice fights the monster, and when you defeat him the first time, Rita makes him grow and you play as the Megazord. Much like the Fighting Edition, the music is awesome, and the comic-like animated scenes match up to the show well and look really damn good for a Genesis game. Again, the matches resemble Street Fighter, except this game actually manages to move slower than the Fighting Edition, which is quite a feat. You know a fighting game is flawed when your character doesn't even run, he walks. That just invokes excitement, doesn't it? The fighting is unbelievably slow. Your character mainly only punches and kicks and will occasionally use a weapon. The biggest problem is that the game is not very self-explanatory. The game will sometimes allow you to use a weapon and sometimes it won't. I still haven't been able to figure this out. At first I thought it was because of the special meter that appears under the health bar, and that was what told you to use the weapons. But that's not the case because I've gotten the characters to use them without it. The punching and kicking is almost entirely useless because you can't really get too close to the enemy without getting hit, which means you might hit him, but you're almost guaranteed to get hit as well in the process. Also, out of the 6 Rangers that you get to play in the game, 3 are useless. The Green, Black, and Blue Rangers are the only ones worth playing, mainly because of their weapons. The Green Ranger's Dragon Dagger is great to fight with from a distance because it shoots this green ray. Granted, you have to time it perfectly, but it's still very effective. The Blue Ranger's staff is great for opponents who jump. And the Black Ranger's Power Axe is simply badass. The Black Ranger does this sweet spin with the Power Axe, and it's easily the most effective move in the game. The Megazord is a little easier to get control of, and has a variety of punches, kicks, and the weapons are easier to access. If you choose the Green Ranger, you call him the Dragon Zord, which is faster than the Megazord, so that's pretty cool. There is one minor flaw with the Zords, and that's the fact that you can't jump, and a few of your enemies can. But for the most part, the Zord battles are much easier to win than the Ranger battles. Graphically, the game looks pretty good, and the music once again is badass. They do get a little lazy with some of the design. For instance, the male Rangers all look the same, except they changed the color, and the Black Ranger looks more gray than black. So overall, this is a little too clunky in areas. Yeah, the Zord battles are nice, but the rest just doesn't work very well. The last game we'll look at is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie for the Sega Genesis. Now I'm sure many would expect a movie adaptation to be the worst of the bunch, but this isn't. This is actually the best game on the list, and for a variety of reasons. For one, the story doesn't just follow the movie story. In fact, it follows actually a part of the second season story as well. In the very beginning, starting with the end of Jason, Zack, and Trini's stories to the introduction of Rocky, Adam, and Aisha. The gameplay is much different than the two other games that we played so far. In fact, instead of being like Street Fighter, it's like the other series that spawned from Street Fighter, Final Fight. The gameplay consists of mainly a side-scrolling beat-em-up style gameplay. It's actually rather addicting, although very easy for the most part when you're facing the smaller enemies, for instance putties or the ooze monsters. It's very arcade-like in areas, with its time limits to move on to the next part of the level, and instead of the level starting over when you die, you hit start and another ranger starts from where you left off. So that's pretty cool. However, you don't die right away when the time runs out. When the time runs out, your health starts to rapidly deplete, and once your health bar is empty, that's when you call on another ranger. The move list is pretty self-explanatory. It's just punch, kick, and throw for the most part. After defeating a certain number of putties or ooze monsters, power coins appear and those add health to the health bar. This is actually my only real nitpick about the game, because when the power coins appear, you would expect just to be able to walk right into them to collect them. But no, you have to punch them to collect them. That seems pretty pointless. The other problems with the game are the standard problems that come with side-scrolling beat-em-up games. One is the perspective. A lot of times when the enemies come at you, you never can tell how far down or up your character needs to be in order to hit them. The perspective gives you the false impression that you're dead even with your enemy, but you're actually a little above or below them. Another problem that I have with the game is that it's not very self-explanatory in areas. One level in particular has you in an area that appears to be nothing but putties, but after a while, you realize that the putties are never ending, and you never see an arrow indicate that you can move forward, and the time limit never starts over. This is mainly because there is a part of the level where you have to knock a huge rock out of the way to reveal a cave. That leads you into a fight with Lord Zed, where you have to beat up his giant hand until he gives up. The game can also be very annoying, especially Goldar. Goldar is nearly impossible to beat, mainly because he does the same move over and over and over again, and that's fly up and shoot rockets at you. However, through trial and error, you can beat him. He's one of those opponents where if you start off well, you'll most likely beat him. The reason why that move by Goldar is so annoying is because you can't jump in the game, so it really doesn't make sense on why they added that move for him when there's very little chance on actually reaching him. Graphically, this game actually resembles Final Fight, and that's a good thing because I like the Final Fight games, and once again, the music is awesome. This game features more of Ron Wasserman's work like 541, We Need a Hero, Combat, and the Green Ranger theme. So overall, like I said, this is the best of the bunch, and you really don't have to be a Power Ranger fan to enjoy it. Granted, they could have explained some of the levels a little better, but that's easily forgiven because it's not as impossible to figure out like some games. So that's the Power Ranger games that I happen to still own. Compared to other TV adaptations, Power Rangers has been treated very well. While the first two weren't great, they were still decent, and the movie adaptation is easily one of the most addicting games that I've ever played. Well everyone, that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.